So good morning. Thanks for joining us here in the Center for Teaching and Mentoring. We are here for our fourth session in the new programs and courses series that we've been offering all semester. This particular session is about developing new courses and the processes and things to consider as you are entering the details into our university system, but also just thinking about what good practice is. So I'm Robin Ridgely. I'm the assistant director of the center and a professor in the College of Education. And I'm here with my colleagues, Missy Brandon and Paula Callahan. I will let them share a little bit about who they are, what they do.
Good morning. I'm Missy Brandon, Director of Catalog and Curriculum Management, and we do the catalogs in addition to all of the other curriculum that we handle to get us to that point. But everything that goes through curriculum and is approved through all the various committees comes to the catalog, and that's when we're trying to get ready for the 26-27 catalog right now.
And my name is Paula Callahan, and I am the Catalog and Curriculum Specialist. I work for Mitzi and with Mitzi on producing the undergraduate and graduate catalogs for the university. We use curriculum now, and catalog are two software systems programs that we use to make all that happen, make all the magic happen. Okay.
So our outcome and what we hope to accomplish today is to really talk with you about how to think about all of the pieces that go in the curriculum system, how that relates to developing a course. We won't dig into all of the best practices necessarily related to all of the components, but we absolutely in the center could support with that with other sessions or individual consultations or that sort of thing. So just wanted to be clear about that.
All right, so I'm going to talk about courses for a minute, and Paula's going to take over a little bit later and talk about prerequisites and restrictions, but courses are, I consider the Legos or the building blocks for all programs. You start with the course and then you start building out. When you're developing a course, you want to think about what the purpose it is. Is it going to be is it going to replace a requirement? Is it going to be an elective? Is it just going to be a general course? How are you going to use that, and what are you going to do with it? One of the things, I guess I could go show that now.
Sure.
I will say that course changes are not always simple. Credit hour changes, people think that's an easy thing to do. It's not. Often it will add hours to your program or take away hours from your program. So you need to be very careful about course changes. Titles are a little bit easier, but credit hour changes and that type of thing do present some difficulties. And one of the things that we've seen this year are some duplicated courses. So I'm going to show you how to do a quick search just to see if there's other courses that might exist with that same title. They may not have the same content, but they may have the same title. So if you go to catalog.mtsu.edu, the default is the undergraduate catalog. You can always select graduate if you want to. And go to catalog search. You can search the entire catalog right here. And I'm going to use social media because that's just something that we're seeing a lot of. And to just do a search. And here's all the places that social media appears, but we're looking at courses. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 courses with the word social media in them. These that came up down here will have social media in the course description. So this is a good way, just a general search, just to see if there's something out there that you're thinking about. If you want to narrow it down, you could go right here and just do courses. I bet you're going to get the same results. It's just not going to be as much. So anyway, I recommend you do that when you're getting ready to do a new course, that you do a quick search and see if there's something out there. You may want to consult that department to see if that's something that you want to talk to them about using. So,
Some cross collaboration.
Yes. Collaboration is always good. And we have, in terms of deadlines, today is it for the last UCC and graduate council meeting. So if you don't have it approved and at that step by today, you're gonna be out of luck until next fall.
And the only thing that would go in this year's catalog would be new courses.
Would be new courses, that is correct.
All the catalog changes are due in January, because we have to have time to get them in there.
And yes, lots of time to get them in there. But yeah, with almost 500 changes this year for both graduate and undergraduate catalogs, so have lots going on. Yeah.
So once you know that you're, sorry, I'm still dealing with this. There we go. So once you know that you need a new course, you've determined that an existing course isn't offered anywhere on campus, and you're ready to develop your new course. The first thing that you need to think about are all of the pieces that are going to go into that course. Our colleague, Dr. Lando Carter, does a great session on backward design. And if I'm not mistaken, there is a session on our website where you can learn more about this backward design process. But I wanted to mention it because it should guide your work whenever you're thinking about course development. It's really thinking about what is it, you start with thinking about what is it that you want students to learn? How will you know if they've learned it? And then what are you going to do to help them learn those pieces? That should guide your work. And I'm going to dig into each of those pieces, but that should guide the process that you use when thinking about developing a course, with starting with the end in mind, which is what it is you want students to learn. So let's talk a little bit about student learning objectives. To me, that is the very first thing that you think about whenever you're identifying a new course. You know it's needed in your program because no other course is needed. You know it's content that hasn't been offered in your program before. It's important to think about how it fits within the bigger picture of the program. But as you dig into the course and start thinking about it, spend some time thinking about what is it that you want students to learn. And there are lots of places that you can go to figure that out. For many professions, we have professional standards and professional organizations that are guiding much of the work that we do. I'm in the College of Education. That's always the first place we go, are our professional standards to help guide us. So I would go there to think about how does this course fit within the program, and what do our professional standards say about what it is that students need to learn in regard to this particular course and topic. Thinking about, once you know the general idea of what it is students need to learn, making sure that those objectives, those student learning objectives, are measurable. This could be a session in and of itself, is really thinking about how you write an objective that's measurable, but really thinking about what are the action verbs, what are the things that you will see students do, how will they demonstrate their knowledge, their skills. All of that is caught up in that student learning objective. So making sure that as you're identifying those big learning pieces, that you're thinking about how will you know it when you see it? What are those measurable, observable behavior skills that you're going to be looking for? When you're thinking about student learning objectives, it's important to think about how your course fits within the sequence and what the learning occurs in that particular course related to levels of learning. In some courses, we are just starting to help students acquire particular knowledge. And so it's a very low level of learning. It's just acquisition. It might be identifying a particular concept or being able to describe a particular concept. All the way up to, when you think about a course that may be at the end of your program, you may be wanting students to apply or to use knowledge and skills in very application-based ways. And so the learning objectives for those courses will look different. They're going to be they're going to reflect what it is you're wanting students to do. So I'm just going to use an example in my work, working with teachers, pre-service teacher candidates. One of the things that we try to help them learn to do across their program is to use feedback and give feedback to the learners that they're teaching. So in an early course that they may take, we would absolutely want them to be able to define what feedback is, perhaps give examples of feedback, They may even talk about where it may fit within a lesson or the sequence of learning, right? If we think about them being able, then the next level of learning is where they're able to do it, apply or use that knowledge fluently. So I might, and for another, it could be in the same class or in a different class, I want them to practice giving feedback. And so it might be in that class, I'm going to have them with a peer try out giving feedback in the moment. And so, but they can do it. They know when to provide the feedback, and they have some examples of how to give feedback. And so that fluency is being able to use that skill and start to get better at providing feedback. When I think about generalizing in another course or in a practicum setting related to feedback, I will be looking for that, and the objective may be that they will use feedback when they're interacting with a student and the moment of learning with a student in the classroom. And then being able to adapt it, to me, that's a higher level of learning, and we do expect our teacher candidates to do that toward the end of their program. But they may change how they give feedback. They may be able to give richer feedback. They may give more extended feedback. Or another way to look at that is if a student makes a comment that's not really related to what they're teaching, be able to use what the student said to shift that student's learning. To me, that's adapting how you use feedback. Most of the time, all of those things would not happen in one course. But it's important to identify what level of learning in your particular course that you are targeting so that you'll use that action verb or that language in your objectives. That's going to drive everything else that you do in your course as you're developing it. So really thinking about those levels of learning and when you're identifying those objectives. And then we've already talked a little bit about where the course fits within the program. Many programs have courses that build on one another. And so you're thinking about that when you're thinking about your learning objectives. You're targeting an objective that's just right for that course based on where it falls in the program and where it falls in the student's learning. There are times that programs may have just a standalone course. It's the only course that a student takes about a particular topic. And so your objectives may cut across levels of learning, or it could just still be a fairly low level of learning where they're just building acquisition of some kind of knowledge. I'll pause there just if there are any questions either in the room or on Zoom related to student learning objectives. Like I said, that could be a whole session in and of itself, and we're happy to work with folks on that here in the center if folks want some support with that. All right, coaching. Okay, so along with what Robin was talking about in the sequence of your courses, you may identify that you need or you want a prereq on your course. So consider as you're considering what students really need to be able to be successful in your course, is there another course that you would like for them to have prior to the one that you're designing? But be careful about adding too many prereqs because you may create a bottleneck in your majors pathway so that students can't progress in a timely manner because they have to wait on a class that is always full or fills quickly, and you might not have the staff to open another section, or well, forgot what I was going to say, but you get the gist that you don't want to create a problem where the students can't get through the courses. Then who do you want to take the class? Is this class going to be only for your majors? Only for your majors and minors? Or can anyone take the class? Because there are several programs that we call transfer friendly sometimes when we are talking about programs that students can transfer into and finish their degrees quickly because they have tons of work from somewhere else, but they still want a specialty and a major. So if students could take your class just as an elective, then you wouldn't want to restrict it to anyone. And we really encourage everyone to check their prereqs every semester. I believe the scheduling center
Ann Ford used to talk about this. She's gone. Review your prereqs every once in a while and determine if they're still necessary, or if you want to change them up. And we were talking about deadlines in January earlier. We had over 300 prereq changes this season. So it happens all the time, but also wanted to point out why we have to put that deadline on there, because especially after registration opens, like it opened this week, if we were to change a prereq, they would have to do it on every single section. So if we can meet the deadline in January, they can get it processed in time for registration to open in April, because they're going to be registering for summer and fall in April. So the deadline's in January to make that happen. Okay, and then I'm going to show on pipeline how to look at a couple of things and consider a few things when it comes to prerequisites. Okay, so from the pipeline MT homepage, if you look over to the tools, there's a course catalog there. It shows all the courses, and you can also check your prereqs here. You don't necessarily have to run the report provided by the scheduling center, but these are the ones that have already been processed for summer and fall. If you go to the term that you want to check, so you can see the history of things too. I'm going to pick on accounting this morning because I used to work in the College of Business. Shout out there to the Jones College, and pull up the accounting courses to show you a couple of things. So accounting 1, students to take accounting 1 need a college level math course, English 1010, and sophomore standing. And then it gives a short description of what the course is about, right? And then for the transfer students, we have a note in there that says, if you came from Motlow or Columbia State with accounting 1010, it's the same thing as our 2110 here. But you can dig a little deeper here and see that it's not just the words that keep a student from registering for a class. And I'm going to say that again in just a minute, just as an example. But if you scroll down, the restrictions say that a student cannot be a freshman. So that means in the scheduling center, they have a restriction in there that says a student cannot register for this class unless they have 30 credit hours minimum. Okay, so you can set a sophomore standing, you can set, well, that would be a sophomore standing. You can set a junior standing, senior level, but you can restrict by class, and you can restrict by courses. So you can see here that English 1010 has to be taken and passed with at least a D-. That won't get them to graduation though. They have to have a C- to graduate, but they could take English 1010, get a D, and still take accounting 1. Now something in a college level math course, that's the math 1001 to 499, 4,999. So something that I've seen on courses in the past, not recently, but our entry level courses where folks haven't considered our learning support courses. So if a student comes in and they are not quite writing ready, reading ready, or math ready, we have learning support courses. So down here in the bottom where you see DSPM4, XDM4, SAIL5, those are all coded. Well, these are coded here for the prerequisites. But when students are applied to MTSU and they're not English reading, writing, or math ready, then they get code on their record. So if you want to make sure students are math ready before they take accounting 1, then, accounting 1 has a great example here of how they have it locked down. They couldn't even take it till they're a sophomore. They can't take it till they've had, a freshman English and math course. So those are, good strong holds for making sure a student who's not ready for accounting 1, and it's hard. I took it twice. Then, they've got it locked down where they can't get in there if they shouldn't be in there. Then I want to show accounting 2, because this would just make sense, right? That you have to have accounting 1 before you have accounting two. And they wouldn't necessarily, I don't think, maybe they would need those math, writing and reading prereqs on there because they have to have accounting one to get in to that class. So just an idea of how to sequence, if you need to sequence, or if they can stand alone. If they stand alone, they don't have any prereqs on them at all, and that's fine. That's also very freshman friendly and transfer friendly, not to have any. So unless it's necessary, I would advise not to put a prereq on there. And then I think my next slide kind of comes into play here. But we will have folks who propose a new course, and when they lock it down, sometimes I might remember to ask, so you don't want anybody to take this course as an elective. And they'll pause and say, well, we don't really care. I mean, if there's an extra seat, sure. So just consider whether you only want majors, minors, or anybody to take the course. Also, restrictions can only be set on one item. That's a banner restriction for us. So if you are going to put a restriction on your course, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. If you are going to put a restriction on your course, then I'm sorry, the clicker's got me.
Yeah.
All right.
Just do it. Let's see. Okay, that one?
Yes. What was I going to say, Mitzi? If you are going to put a restriction on your course, you can only do one. That's what it was. So if you're going to put a restriction, and let's just say you only want majors and minors in there, well, the scheduling center can restrict it to majors because that one's going to take priority, right? And then your minors, if you want them to take it, will have to have permission of department because the system won't read for both of those. It will only take precedence over the most important one. Okay. And this slide just says reiterates what I said. The words will not keep a student out of the course. Only what is listed where you can see it in pipeline. Those are the things that will keep your students out of your courses. And we want those to match as closely as possible. That's what Mitzi and I check for. Every summer after it's published, we go back and read every word to make sure that things line up and the catalog matches what Banner says. Okay.
What we've placed on this slide is a view of the curriculum system, what used to be Curriculog, to align with what we've talked about so far. So as you look at this slide, you'll notice that in the curriculum system, if you're developing a new course, you have to outline those prerequisites that you're saying are needed for your course. That students must have these courses before they move into this new course you're proposing. The other pieces are the description. So the catalog description, which is the brief description that goes in the catalog. And then there's a place for a more lengthy course description where you can talk about any of the other pieces, field experiences, clinical experiences, anything that might be helpful to note about your course that wouldn't be captured in the catalog description would go in that next place.
I call the catalog description the elevator pitch.
Yes, right. And just know that's what most people see. That's what most students are going to pay attention to is the catalog description. So it is important that it accurately reflects what students are going to learn, be able to do, and experience in the course that you're proposing. The other thing I wanted to just say about prerequisites, not to belabor the point too much, but I know as a faculty member, we often worry a lot about what students know before they come into a particular course. And I agree with that notion that it is important to build some background knowledge for some courses before they move on into this perhaps new course. But I do, to kind of piggyback on what they're saying, I think it is important to also realize that students often will need a review and you'll have to set the stage for your course regardless of whether they've taken the prerequisite or not. So thinking carefully about whether that prereq is really needed or not. And because we do want students to be able to register as easily as possible, and we do want them to be able to matriculate through their program as easily as they can. So just being thoughtful about that. I'm struggling real with moving us along here.
You want me to do this?
It won't work there.
It won't work. I'm just gonna try that.
All right.
Oh, well, let me go over there.
Wait a minute, this movie have a problem? Okay, so that next page related to objectives in the curriculum system that we just wanted to highlight is you will put in the system your course objectives. So all of that work that you're doing related to thinking about what are the ideas and concepts that we want students to learn, those learning objectives will go in curriculum along with the course justification. That's where you're talking about why is this course needed? How does it connect with the other courses in your program? And just describing why you need it. All right, what I do? Goodness. All right, so moving along. Thinking back to the backwards design model, once you know your student learning objectives, then and have identified those, the next piece is to think about, so how are you going to know if students have learned the pieces that you've targeted in your learning objectives? For the curriculum, for proposing a course, I've outlined some things to consider when identifying those assessments. Good teachers know that you are going to be assessing all along the way throughout a course. In every class session, you may do something that helps you know if students have learned the content that you've taught during that particular class session. When you're proposing a new course, you won't include all of those assessments in the course proposal. You're going to think about what are there are different words that we've used over time, but what are the key assessments? What are the summative, the assessments that happen toward the end that tell you what students have learned? It may not always be at the end of the course. It might be at the end of a module if you're teaching online. It might be at the end of a sequence of classes if you're teaching in units or in some other kind of configuration. But those summative assessments that tell you what students have learned as a result of participating in your class sessions and doing other learning types of activities. You may have multiple of those. They may be assignments, they may be exams, they may be some other a project of some sort. But when you think about those summative assessments, you want them to be tied to the learning objectives. You'll think about those verbs that you've used in your learning objective and identify the key activities or assessments that will help you know, are they able to do the thing that you've targeted? So if it's a lower level skill like identify, well, then you may be able to figure that out through an exam or through a test, a quiz, or something of that nature. If it's an application based or where they've had to generalize a skill in a setting, then it may be more of a project. It may be something that they're doing out in the field. It could be any number of things, but what that assessment looks like will be different. But you need to think about that thoughtfully, tying whatever you've targeted in your objectives to those assessments. Other thing that I think about, did you have a question? No, okay. The other thing that I think about, especially when I think about courses that you know may be taught by lots of different people or multiple people, those non-negotiable assessments. What are the assessments that you want that need to be in the course regardless of who's teaching it? To me, those are the things that go in your course proposal, those non-negotiables. When I think about the curriculum system, I see it as our documentation of what it is we say we're going to do in a class. And so it can be the holding place for what you've planned and where you have captured those non-negotiables, those things that must happen regardless.
And you could share that with adjuncts.
Absolutely, that's right. And so when you're developing the syllabus, things come directly from what you've put in the curriculum system. To guide you in developing that first syllabus. You might include significant formative assessments, those things that happen along the way that help you know if students are learning the content and when you give them that assessment or they participate in that assessment activity, you're gonna then go back and reteach. If they didn't learn it, you're gonna adapt, you're gonna spiral back around to discuss the topic again. So you might include those as well, but I wouldn't include all of them. It's the ones that are that matter the most for making sure that you're figuring out and keeping up with whether students are learning the content. And then the last piece that I think is important to consider is, as you think about this course within all of the courses in your program, there may be times that this new course, there will be something happen in that class that's tied to program learning outcomes for SACS COC accreditation, documentation, or for your own specialty area accreditation. If that's going to happen, if you know that needs to happen in this course, then noting that in the curriculum system as one of the assessments that you're going to use is important. That way we've captured that that's happening in this class and it's going to be included there. Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a question in the chat.
Okay.
That I wanted you all to be able to speak to. It says, what is required to change or update a catalog description?
You want me to take that one? Catalog descriptions can be updated by sending Paula and myself an email, unless you are changing course content. If you are changing the course content, you will have to do a proposal in Curriculog and show where the content is changing. But for the most part, usually updating language from the 20th century to the 21st century, or some kind of just updating your terminology, can be done with an email to Paula and myself.
Great question.
Good question. Yep. And we will be seeing, we're in the catalog process right now, so we're doing things a little bit differently. After the catalogs are published, we're going to send out a complete course listing showing prerequisites, repeats, credit hours, contact hours. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to look at that than trying to go through a banner and look at it. So we're going to send that out this summer, and that's going to be our summer project. So you'll, I hope, get the complete for your department. So.
And those are going to go to the department chairs.
They'll go to department chairs and they can disperse it to anybody they want to.
In the curriculum system, what this looks like where you capture the assessments that you're going to use, it's labeled evaluation procedures in curriculum. But that's the place you're going to describe and include how you're assessing learning in your new course. So to review, we've talked about when you think about developing a new course, you think about what are those student learning objectives what are the things that you want students to learn? Then the next step is then how are you going to know that they've learned it or not, the assessment pieces. Final piece in thinking about developing a new course is thinking thoughtfully about the nuts and bolts of the course, the learning activities that contribute to the students' learning. When you think about those items, they include such things as the topics that you're going to be covering in the course. They often come from those student learning outcomes or objectives, but there also may be some topics that are not as specifically identified in the objective, but that are important, that contribute to student learning acquiring a student learning objective. So thinking through all of the topics and identifying those. The readings, the texts that you're going to use to help students learn more about the topics, the class sessions, the things that happen each and every time you meet with the students, or the online modules that you're creating that contribute to student learning. And then assignments. Now, assignments and assessments may overlap, but you may have some assignments that are used for practice or to give formative feedback in the moment or along the way, so you know how to adjust your teaching.
And I just want to say real quick, because when you say overlap, I'm like, yes, because that is a reinforcement. Like, you know how you say that instructors give keywords, like this is going to be on the test, but you bring something up multiple times to reinforce that learning. You know, they might not get it the first time, I guess.
Lots of times we want to start with the learning activities because as experts in our field and as teachers, those are the kinds of things that we get excited about, because they're the pieces that we get to develop, and that's how we're going to help students actually learn the content. But that really, when you think about backwards design, that's one of the last things you do, because you want to first have clear what it is you want them to learn, how you're going to know it, if they've learned it or not, and then you figure out how you're going to get them there. When you think about learning activities, that's the kind of the mindset. How are we going to move students along to learning the student learning objectives? And that includes all of these pieces. In the curriculum system, that shows up in a few different places, but you outline your course topics. So it's captured in the system. It's a list of the topics you're going to address. You include activities possible. Yes, I do use the word possibly required. So that automatically sends a signal that the activities are not set in stone. That is where, when you have multiple people teaching a class, the way that they help students learn the content may vary, because the way I do it may look different than the way Mitzi or that Paula does it. But these are some examples of activities that you think should be included in the class. Now, as a faculty member and as a former program coordinator, if there are activities that I would label as non-negotiable, then I think that's important to include those there. And that's important to then communicate to the other people teaching the
To
class.
have required activities.
And then there are required there too. Yeah, okay. Yes, okay.
I think that's helpful.
Right, yes. And then, of course, you're going to outline your references and text. Those are not set in stone either. They're examples. They are the ones that you have identified that align with the learning objectives, that align with the content you're going to teach. As a course planner, I think it's always helpful to already have that work out of the way, so that you want to be thoughtful about choosing the text and the references that you include here, because it can help you as you move along with the course. All right, so the last piece that we wanted to talk about is thinking about how your course aligns with accreditation. As a former person in our college who spent a lot of time thinking about accreditation, I included this because I think it's important for all of us to be thinking about how an individual course fits within the big picture of our program, but then also the work that we have to do to show how we're effectively training our candidates, our students. They want to know how the course aligns with professional standards. They want to know how you're giving them experiences in the field oftentimes. How do they get real life, real world, work-based experiences? As you're developing a course, start thinking about that. Plan for how you're going to align with those pieces. You can identify the professional standards that are aligned with the course. As I mentioned earlier, identifying those when you are working on your student learning objectives is logical, but it's also logical to perhaps look at them later as well. But spend time. If you're intentional in that course development process, then you're going to be able to produce products. You'll have documentation for accreditation about how this particular course fits into the bigger picture and aligns.
And this would include aligning with your stakeholders, right? Your community partners, where your student teachers go. And
yes, absolutely. When you think about accreditation, community partnerships and our work-based partners are often part of that process. So that's a nice way to involve them in the course development process. It's also nice when you're thinking about the learning activities too, because you may be able to pull them in to help you think about what are meaningful assignments or assessments. Are they going to contribute to the students' learning with topics and guest speakers or what have you? So yes, absolutely. And this is a great place to do that. Courses aligned with program level student learning outcomes can often produce data. So thinking about, I had mentioned with the assessment, if there are assessments that align with a data that needs to be collected for SAC-COC or other specialty accreditation boards, then that's a place to do it. But we can be very intentional about making sure that the course aligns. I've included an example of how we've done this in the College of Ed. I'd like to say we did it out of our own because we wanted to, but it's really not. We do this because the Tennessee Department of Education requires us to do it. But I do think it's a fine example of how you might think about this. So this example shows the professional standard. I pulled one for early childhood because that's a program that I work in, but it shows the professional standard on the far left. We've identified the courses that help us address that standard. And then we also have to identify what are the assessments or key assessments that we use to measure whether students are achieving that standard. And then we also have to talk about clinical experiences or those work-based experiences. This is just one model about how you can align. Knowing what your standards are, thinking about them all throughout the process can result in a chart like this. This doesn't have to be a separate activity. It's just a way to capture the pieces. Questions about that? Anything in the chat we need to talk about? So to wrap up, when developing a course, you're thinking about a couple of things, but you have two simultaneous processes in my mind going on. You have the work of thinking about what it is you want students to learn, how are you going to know the assessments you're going to use, and then how you're going to help them achieve those objectives. And then you have the online system that MTSU uses to capture all of that. I have created courses where I've worked on all of it simultaneously, that as I'm thinking through those pieces, I'm entering the information in the curriculum system. There have been times that I draft it all out and talk about it with my colleagues, get feedback from our partners, think about professional standards, and then I go to the system and enter it there. I don't think there's a right or wrong.
There's not. I was just about to say, you can go ahead. I know we're on the same.
You can, I encourage sometimes people just to do their stuff in a Word document and get it ready to, and like she said, share it with your colleagues. You can start a proposal in Curriculog and it doesn't go anywhere until you approve it.
Seen any perfect, so.
See it, but it doesn't go anywhere until you approve it. So you can come back and work on it every day if you want to.
That's Nita.
Oh. What does Nita need?
I'm muted. Dr. Brooks there.
Shout out.
All right, so are there any questions? As I said earlier, we could have whole sessions on developing student learning outcomes, on tying assessments to those student learning outcomes, on thinking about the learning activities. Yesterday, I met with Karen Hine about developing an online course. They do much of this work with you with MTSU Online as you're developing online courses. Certainly in the center, if that was something that I think that people were interested in learning more about, building on each of those learning outcomes to assessments to activities, we could pull together a session on that. But we wanted to really hit the high points and think about how it fits with the system today.
Just a couple of Curriculog. I'm always going to call it Curriculog. It's been that since I've implemented it, since we implemented it in fall 2017. Paula does train it. We said at the first of the fall semester, we set some dates and try to get, we do individual training, but we set some dates where you can come. But if you can't make those, contact Paula and she'll be glad to help you. MT Online, we also have the online course form that's going to be used for all departments once we get the catalogs out of the way. So that's coming up. Behavior and Health Sciences was our guinea pig this year and it worked out well. So we're going to proceed with that for all colleges in the coming year.
So it'll all be in one place.
Everything will be in one place. You can go back and find it. You can search. I tell, I'm always sending emails about how to search to find everything that you've done in Curriculog.
So Paula, you were referencing prerequisites and banner, right? One
Yes.
prerequisite and banner. Do we yet know how that might be different when we go to Oracle? Like, are we beta testing for that facet of it yet?
That would be a Tyler Henson question, I'm pretty
Sure.
sure.
I'm just curious, right?
Oh,
what
I'm sure they,
I'm sure you all are very curious about it too.
yes, yes.
So, okay.
We've hit on prerequisites and restrictions quite a bit this year. And
Mhm.
one of the things when someone might submit a new program or several program changes is that we're looking for hidden prerequisites.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have all of these courses and then we're like, oh, there's a prerequisite for this course, but it's not in the program, which adds, could add more hours to your program. So we've really hit prerequisites and restrictions hard this year. I don't know, judging on the 300 changes that we had to make, if that was good or bad, but
No, it's good.
it is something that we have focused on for this year.
I would call that student friendly,
Yeah.
can't take a class without this class and, oh, that's not even in your major. So,
And I think during Tyler's curriculum stress test, it turned up prerequisites that people didn't even know were on their courses. They had been there for years, or the person who put them on there had left the university. So they were just riding along until there's a problem. When there's registration problems, when it usually turns up. So
Any other questions in the room? There aren't any in the chat. Josh, did you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions.
Okay,
Just
David, hold just one second. We're gonna hear from Josh in the room, and then we're gonna turn it over to you, David.
Okay,
In a course proposal, it mentions a catalog description, which obviously we can see lots of examples by just going through the catalog. They're normally like 3 or 4 sentences. What's the difference in the expectation between a catalog description and the detailed course description? How detailed is that?
the course description is very detailed.
Okay.
The catalog description, we ask you to keep it to 40 words or less. And sometimes we have whole novels. And I'm like, we don't need all of this. We just need a brief, we ask for 40 words or less to 3 or 4 sentences, but the course description is much more detailed. And that's where you get into the nitty gritty.
Like an outline of topics to be.
Usually.
Okay.
a summary of the course.
Okay.
But you don't, to be clear, they don't need to include in the description things that are gonna come up later in the curriculum proposal part, right? So if they include, there's a place to put topics, there's a location for student learning objectives, there is a place for text and that sort of thing.
And then activities and then
Right.
grading and all of that's broken down later
Right.
into the proposal.
So this is the overarching description that is more than 40 words, but that describe, for someone who doesn't know your area of expertise, because for the curriculum committee and for other people to read and learn more about.
Our committees do look at those too.
As a follow-up to that, when you say it's limited to 40 words, does that also include the list of prerequisites?
No.
And the formalized language? Okay, so that
I'll-
goes in there too.
It doesn't have to go in your catalog description because we look in 2 places to put it in the catalog. Like I'll see the course description and then I'll look and see if there are prereqs and then I'll put those in.
We had that very problem this week where we had complaints coming to us from students and advisors that the prerequisites weren't built into the catalog description.
Oh, well, I can change that.
So I think that may be the one Martha emailed me about
Okay.
yesterday. I just haven't had a chance to do anything about it, but we'll take care of it when we get back.
We're human. I'm human. It was me.
I think David in the Zoom room has a question. David, go ahead with your question.
yeah, I had 2. One is just to make sure I understood something that was said earlier. I teach a course that is listed in, I guess it's the catalog description, it's the short one. It's called Legal Courtroom Procedure. The course is really mock trial. And, if I'm a student and I read something, legal courtroom procedure, that gives me no idea, that we're actually trying cases. It could be all about motions to dismiss and summary judgment. So how, as I understand it, if I want to get that changed, I need to email Paula. Is that right?
Sure. Well, are you wanting to change the course description or the course title?
Well, okay, there's a description, there's a catalog description, and there's a title. I guess I'm talking about the title.
Oh, okay. That's different.
That's different. You would do a course change form and curriculum. And whatever you do at this point will be effective summer 27.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be glad to
curriculum.
look at it, when we get back. What is the course number?
PS 2100, political science 2100.
Okay, we'll look at it when we get back to the office and then.
Appreciate it. The other
Sure.
question I have is, once upon a time in 2019, there was a PS 2110, which was called moot court. And it was discontinued in the spring of 2020 because of COVID and lack of, declines in enrollment. If you want to bring a course back, is there any advantage to building on the materials that were submitted for that course to support the inclusion or development of a new course?
You could absolutely look at that to start with. It would be treated as a new course. We don't
Yeah.
bring them back anymore, but it would be treated as a new course with a new course number.
Okay, all right. And there's
That's
another.
a good place to start. I get lots of emails asking me about if I have old course descriptions or old course proposals. I do have several, but not everything. Some of them go back many years, but I don't have those. But it's a good place to start.
Okay, and the place to find that is where? Those materials?
Curriculum.mtsu.edu.
Okay, thank you.
Or the URL.
And if you need training, Paula will be glad to help you.
Okay, well, it's Professor Trowbridge's his baby, but he's quite busy these days, so I'm trying to help him with this. So
Okay.
yeah, so we can take all the help we can get. Thank you.
Well, you may want to give us a call later and let us kind of pinpoint exactly what you need so we can direct you in the right direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Anything else? So you'll see on the screen, we have a QR code. We're trying out a new method to get feedback about sessions. So if you will take a moment to complete the feedback for this session, we'd appreciate it. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for being in the room and on Zoom. Thanks to some of you who participated in all 4 sessions of our MPC series. So thank you or a fair number if it wasn't all 4. So thank you for that. And we just wish you well. Hope the rest of your day goes well. So thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, everybody. I just dropped a link in the chat to our Zoom participants. So if you just want to click on that link, it'll take you 30 seconds to do the evaluation for us and give us some feedback. Thanks, everybody.